Hello, this is Thomas Shelter for Moreland University. This is Module 39, Unit 3, Activity 1. And today I'm going to be going over my e-portfolio to show you the artifacts that I've collected to meet standards 1 and 2. So right now I'm just going to share my screen. So this is my portfolio. And down here, we're going to go to module 39. Here's just to show you all the modules that we've done here. Click over here, see standards 1 and 2. Uh, I'll update the vlog here. Hmm. Here we see the mentor meetings that I've had with my mentor to kind of discuss some of the artifacts, the school improvement plan. Here we see the mission and values for the school. I'm going to be going through a lot of these to click and just show you what we've done. One of the things about Basis Wuhan, where I currently work, is that we Basis is a network of schools, and so even though I created a rephrased mission and values for our campus alone. This is the current statement for Basis China for our international and our bilingual schools. And so we do, focus on student-centered learning, uh, creating sort of a global-minded environment for students because they're going to go to school abroad. And also, a majority of our students, if not all of our students across the network, I don't want to speak for other campuses, but English language learning is going to be one of the primary focuses when it comes to students from different backgrounds and social justice issues. And with that takes into account the Chinese cultural aspect. So for administrators, for faculty, for colleagues, for parents of all different backgrounds that come into our school, one of the things that we have to be cognizant of is the fact that we are living in China and that there's certain rules and laws that we have to follow. And so even though we try to create, global-minded students that are preparing to go abroad, we do have to focus on the fact that they are, we are in a host country, so we have to follow those laws, and that has to be go along with our teaching as well. Um, you know, and so here's our personal code of conduct. So this is my personal code of conduct, just to show you when students or parents or administrators walk into my classroom, one of the things I focus on is punctuality. I want students to be prepared on time, not only for themselves, but it just shows respect for for their classmates. Um, I do expect you to fail. I don't mean fail the class, but I do mean that when you're trying something new, there's going to be a learning process and a growth process that comes to that. And so part of that is learning how to grow with something that you're just learning. And we all want to have academic success, and I want academic success for my students, but they have to kind of get used to the idea that you're not going to get an A right away. You have to really work for that. Um, Everyone deserves respect, not just other people within the classroom, but also you deserve respect as a student. So this kind of, goes hand in hand with treating other people the way that you would expect to be treated. And kind of, the idea of earning it. Everybody in the classroom, you have to, if you want success, you have to work for the success. Um, and so other things that we have as far as the personal code of conduct. Here are the ethics PD for orientation. One of the things I did was I took we're the Gators here at Basis Wuhan, and so as part of that, we take the mission and the value statement and created an acronym for Gators with how we fit Standard 2 with our ethical and professional conduct. And I believe that this fits Standard 2 for all of them, just because, not only are we, we have new teachers coming in, existing teachers, how to act professionally in the school setting, but also making sure that we take care of our ESL students when it comes to academics, but also making sure that we take care of students as far as their well-being, whether that be personal or academic. And then also just because we want to frame our school as a community, that includes the parent and community engagement as part of the school improvement plan. So you can see that as we go through here, if we act professionally, what we want to do is respect cultural differences, um, and then give you guys some examples of what it is that we want to do that is appropriate and not appropriate as professionals in the school setting. This is again taking that Gators framework, and this can be a poster that could be applied um, to within the school network. Excuse me, within our campus. And so this would be something that could go along with all of our core values that we like to espouse monthly. Again, because we're a network of schools, the mission and values are kind of set in stone. So what we have as a school is a set of core values, and that we want teachers and students and hopefully parents to also embody those core values. But here's another way of kind of reflecting how we can safeguard students, act professionally as teachers, and also engage the community as a whole. Um, and then just very briefly, here is a manual that goes over our mission and statements, um, the values that we protect through this code of conduct, and also some examples of how we can reflect each one of those acronyms, giving examples and sort of a protocol of where they fit. And then the next is to pair with the professional development presentation. This would be a guidebook for anybody who wants to teach or go over that orientation. Basically, a little manual guide to how they can go through that presentation. So I believe, with our mission and values and a personal code of conduct, it fits standard one and two through all of the guiding questions. And I'll briefly be going through these just to show you. But when you go to my e-portfolio, these are the artifacts that I do have, and then also here are two planned implementation documents that I would like to have for 2026, 2027. One of the things that I've talked about with my mentor is making sure that we can kind of upgrade our upper school handbook. And I think that these would be two artifacts that could kind of go with making sure that we're fitting into the school improvement plan, but also standards one and two by themselves. So the first thing I'd like to show you is just a breakdown of our school demographics. And, this fits into standards one and two. Obviously, like we're looking at the community as a whole. But also it just gives you a breakdown of who we are as a school. So, we are dealing with, sort of students that come from a higher socioeconomic background. Essentially, all of our students are ELL in one form or another. And you can see that we're growing as a school year to year. The breakdown gender-wise, and then also our year-to-year grade level. So we started off with our highest grade level is grade 9. So next year, 2026, 27, we will have our first graduating class. So we're expecting not only our student population to grow, but obviously we're going to have a full high school at this point and a middle school. You can see the breakdown of boarders versus day students. And then also we focus a lot of our data going using MAP score testing. So you can see that year to year there is growth there. We test fall and our spring. And then again, this also fits into standard two as far as how we use data to direct instruction. So if we go here and we see standard two and we go down here to number one, the ethical and professional conduct, so how we mentor teachers and use data to guide instruction. And then also is how we engage with our parents and communities to try and help differentiate learning for students, whether that's through face-to-face meetings or the types of contact that we have with parents through email engagement. And then also student centeredness. So we use this, again, like I said, we use this data to drive instruction. And as part of that comes differentiation. So we know students who are in our classes that are going to struggle with English, going to struggle whether it's verbally, whether it's through writing or reading comprehension. And so, therefore, depending on the classes that we teach as leaders, we can help teachers differentiate lesson plans. So that way, we're reaching students where they are, but also trying to bridge that gap to the type of academic rigor that we expect for our students to have when it comes to getting through those exams. And also that goes into the ethical challenges with special education and social justice. Again, we don't have any students with special needs, and also we're pretty homogeneous as far as Chinese students and all being ELL learners. So therefore, this kind of breakdown of our data helps understand who our students are, what our students need, and then we can use that data to try to inform the decision-making processes that we use in our departments, and then also to our teachers when it comes to lesson planning. And then it also just tells you that as a school, we have more students taking APs. We're an AP-centered school, and so therefore you can see the type of growth that we've had. And one of the things I really love to see is that giant growth as far as fours and fives. That not only successful for our students, but as a school, it's very successful for us because it helps give, try to get more students to come to our school to show that they can be successful. And going back to standard one, as far as our mission and values. So these are our core values. I'm going to try to zoom in here a little bit. So these, we have get trackers, and this is how we reward students for embodying the core values that we expect out of them. And so this, fits into standard one as far as our mission and value and how we approach our students in teaching, but also as a community, and fits into standard two as far as how we respect our students and how we treat our students. Um, and so then let me go down here. So here's a little behavioral intervention plan that I created. So again, the cultural challenges that exist are because we have, we're in China. So again, we will rely on the academic rigor for teachers and for students when it comes to the learning process. We have high expectations for APs and for our middle school students. But we also have to be cognizant of the fact that what we teach and how we teach it to the students and deliver it to them has to be culturally sensitive. And so, therefore, we have these sorts of supports. But one of the things that we can do to help sort of differentiate learning, whether it is when it comes to behavior management or when it comes to how we work with lower level students or high achievers. So here is, one example is giving choice boards to students. The other is sort of behavioral contracts. Um, and so, one of the things that we want to do for students is that number one, we want to challenge students. We want that academic rigor, and we pride ourselves on, recruiting students as they come in, knowing that this is going to be a challenging environment for them academically. But at the same time, we want to make sure that for the students that we have, while we're going to challenge you academically, we are there to support you. We do not want to overburden you. And so with that comes that sort of challenge for ourselves as leaders is how we can make sure that we have the standard for academic rigor, but at the same time, how are we going to use these support systems for students to make sure that they don't burn out? And so here we have a little bit of a PD of how we can give differentiated learning to students to make sure that they maintain a certain level at which they're going to be successful towards the end of the year. So right now we're in the AP season, and for our middle school students and selected high school students, we're getting ready for our comprehensive exams. So one of the things that I would like to do is make sure that we take sort of the data from this year, and that way we can approach next year of how we can help teachers go into the classroom next year and meet those sort of guiding questions in Standard 2 when it comes to working with students who are ELL, the ethical challenges, the moral direction and guidance, whether we're mentoring teachers through this, but how can we get them to differentiate for students without overburdening them? Okay, because obviously teachers have a lot on their plates already. But how can we help teachers differentiate lessons to get students on track and then to try to maintain that academic rigor? And so then the next one here is I'm pretty proud of. Uh, I'm proud of all the artifacts, I should say, but this one was where I worked with a fellow English teacher, colleague, and we looked at students who were struggling in English, that were particularly struggling sort of, in economics and also in English. And we kind of looked at different tests around the same period of time. And we tried to come up with different strategies. So you see here, like co-teaching mini lessons. So kind of bringing in English into economics. I know that we always like to say that every teacher is an English teacher, but there are things that, in specialty subjects like economics or sciences or maths, that we can kind of bridge those sort of core subjects for English into our environment to help students when it comes to vocabulary or writing short sentences. And then with that targeted small group work, so getting students, whether it's going to be heterogeneous or homogeneous grouping, how can we get students, from lower levels and higher levels, how can we get them to work together to help each other? And so this, I think, could be, sort of a foundational example of how teachers from other subjects and similar grade levels can work together. It doesn't mean that you have to give up your instructional time, but it is a good way of looking at similar grade level students that we share, and how can we incorporate our lessons sort of together to sort of strategize, helping students as a whole improve. And so when we look at the guiding questions, obviously we see here the student centeredness. I mean, so we're hitting that, the ethical and professional conduct as far as how we work together as colleagues. But then, as chair of social studies, I can go to my social studies teachers and show them, this is how you might want to look at certain students that you've identified as being as struggling, and how we can work with other subject teachers to help with instruction. And then, of course, adapting to this school's mission and vision for Standard 1, and then also the moral direction and guidance, helping, treat students fairly and also giving them the support that they need. And then the very last artifact that I just want to talk about is sort of the lesson planning and coaching, observations and coaching. So, as part of my job duty as a chair of social studies, is observing teachers in the classroom, and then also writing summaries of how well they did in the class, and kind of giving them the feedback in things that, from a 30,000 foot perspective, what I'm seeing, and again, one of the focuses here is not to be critical of their teaching and telling them things that they're doing wrong, but it's more to try to give them the support of areas of change and growth. And so here you also see that as part of the system, there's a self-reflection piece, and then sort of an analysis of what the observation and feedback structure looks like for the reflection. The other thing that comes with part of my job title and this artifact as well is the idea that we also have coaching sessions with these. So one of the things that I did with Mr. Torres in this example, after I observed the classes, we found a time where we could speak for about 20, 30 minutes and we could share sort of our thoughts on the lesson. And then the other thing is, when you go into a lesson to observe, you're only getting a snapshot of that teacher and of that class on that day. And so while these observations serve as sort of a good box to check off of what you're seeing that day, it is good to have that coaching conversation with the teacher because then you can sort of see and fill in the gaps of maybe you didn't see something in that classroom that you would have liked to seen, but this lesson, proceeded or is going to have something that's more student centered, or this was just part of a larger unit. So it helps to have those coaching conversations to give you more of a context of what it is you are seeing in the classroom at that time. And of course, when we go over here to the standards, the student centeredness. So obviously, you're seeing what the teacher is doing in the classroom to help students, and it also can serve as a piece to sort of, what is that teacher doing and what they can be doing after this to meet that sort of student centeredness with improving lesson plans, ethical and professional conduct. So obviously, not just the observation part, but one of my favorite things as I've been a chair is the coaching conversations. So being able to go and meet with my fellow teachers in social studies and really, not just help them in their lessons, but make sure that I'm there to serve them in making sure that they have the tools that they need to succeed. And then obviously, adapting to the school's mission and values um, is what we can do in the classroom to support the students. And so I think that this artifact fits pieces of standard one and most of all standard two. Sorry for that back and forth right there. One of the things that I'd like to talk about last is I'm still developing these, so I'm going to share these in my mentor meeting um, with Stephen. But one is a parent communication checklist. So, and then the other is a lesson checklist for teachers. Um, Number one, as part of my school improvement plan, is to try and create that buy-in with parent and teacher feedback and community engagement. And so having a checklist for teachers to have to sort of help supplement and give them templates to engage with parents, whether it's on a week-to-week basis, unit by unit, upcoming exams, identifying sort of patterns of behavior that we want to intervene in for student well-being, but basically give a template and a foundation for teachers to communicate with parents more often because I think that type of communication enhances buy-in and also enhances support from the parents with what we are doing as a school, but also with what that teacher is doing in their classroom, which I think fits number one, standard one, adapting to the mission and vision, but also with standard two, with ethical and professional conduct and student centeredness, because and then also parent communication. And then here we have a lesson checklist for teachers. This would fit under standard two for ethical and professional and student centeredness. And just kind of, for basically, I would think this would be for newer teachers, but also for existing teachers, just to make sure that like when they're coming into a lesson or when they're preparing a lesson, sort of just some questions they can ask themselves to kind of make sure that when they go into a classroom, and not a classroom that's going to be observed, but just making sure that every class fits certain standards that we want here at Basis. So learning and language objectives, does it meet curriculum requirements? Does it meet our guidelines for middle school and for AP course guidelines? Are we taking into account the differentiation for struggling students? And do we have extensions for higher achieving students? And so, we have a varied background at our school, and we have a varied background in every classroom. So we want to make sure that teachers are hitting all of those things. Um, and then just very lastly, sort of as a reflection piece, sort of the bullet points that I just want to kind of go over, re-emphasizing where all of those artifacts and sort of the planned implementation documents that I want to create for next academic year. I think that obviously, a lot of these, we created we have a data set for our student body. We use that map growth. We have our core values. So even though we can't change year to year our mission and vision statement, we do have core values as a school that we expect students to embody. And therefore we can emphasize that. Um, when it comes to the cross-curricular teaching, the type of collaboration that we have fits Standard 2 very well, also adapting to our mission. The artifacts here fit my school improvement plan as far as ELL enhancement, student well-being, teacher mentoring, and parent community engagement. Um, Artifacts show student-centered leadership because they connect with our academic rigor, care, support, communication, and parent and student-parent follow-up. Um, and then one of the things here is like having some sort of evidence tracker. So going forward, I would create a school improvement plan evidence tracker that records the artifacts, and then also follow-ups. So. So when I look back at this, how it fits Standard 1 and 2, obviously, one of the things that I start the year off with my students and parents at Meet the Teacher Night, and also that I share with my fellow social studies teachers, is that it's not about perfection, it's about growth. It's kind of a personal motto that I have. And that, I always tell my students at the end of the year when you take the AP exam, that's when we want perfection. But every day that we have class is practice. And so it's about, learning, failing, making mistakes, reflecting, and growth. And so I don't think any of us are perfect when we go in, leaders, teachers, and students. So it's all always about growth. So I think that these artifacts, I do think that they fit um, on more on the outstanding side. Obviously, I want to give myself the benefit of the doubt, but I definitely think that all of these fit proficient standards, and if not outstanding. And one of the things that, I really want to focus on is not necessarily the things that we've done this year because we've done a lot, and it's very great to show off those things, but also about growth. So I think that the planned implementation documents that I have, and I'll meet with Stephen about, is to try and think of things that we can use from this year as lessons, reflect and grow, and then implement into next year. And so I don't know whether or not these would be successful, but I do think that they would help teachers a long way in making sure that they plan lessons accordingly. And then also they create that sort of parent and community engagement that I think is going to be really essential for school success. All right. So thank you for watching that, and see you next time.